In love with my ex, now married to another, it's a tangled web. If you don't marry me, I'll marry someone else, he said, and I begged him not to leave me as I fell to my knees. Now he's crying over his marriage, but I know I can't go back. What should I do? I am a 22-year-old female and I met my ex-boyfriend, who is a 23-year-old male, when we were in school around 10 to 11 years ago. We were always good friends, not overly friendly, but we would occasionally chat and hang out. I began dating boys at a very young age. To be honest, it wasn't really dating. It was more like me having crushes, and when those boys asked me to be their girlfriend, I would just say yes. As a child, I was somewhat attractive, so I was accustomed to receiving attention. My ex-boyfriend, whom I will refer to as Matt, was a very chubby and unpopular kid. All the girls in our class would give him a hard time because of his weight, but I always thought he was sweet and a genuinely nice boy. A couple of years later, by the time I was 14, I had already experienced my first love and had my heart broken by that guy who ended our relationship. This guy was close friends with Matt, and since Matt was a mutual friend, he would often help us reconcile. Moreover, he would always listen to me and showed me a great deal of sympathy during my heartbreak. I do not know how it happened, but after my breakup, I began to fall for Matt. I initially thought it was just his kindness that was making me feel this way, but being a 14-year-old girl, I confided in Matt about my feelings. Although I had a few boys I had dated and had my first kiss by the age of 14, Matt had never even had a crush before. Since I was the first girl to express interest in him in that way, Matt promptly admitted that he liked me too, and we started dating. Once I began dating Matt, I quickly understood that he was very different as a boyfriend than he was as a friend. He was extremely possessive and controlling, and although I recognized these red flags, I still respected his feelings. Even to this day, I remember how passionately we were both falling in love with each other. When my love for him truly blossomed, it felt as if the rest of the world had faded away. My feelings made me feel powerful at that young age, and I sensed that Matt felt the same level of affection for me. By the time I turned 15, Matt and I had become so emotionally connected that it seemed as though we had never lived a life without loving each other. I took pride in being his first everything, although I occasionally felt guilty that Matt was not my first boyfriend or my first kiss. I should also mention that overall, Matt was a very toxic partner. I was aware of this from the beginning and had accepted it wholeheartedly. Since this is my account of the story, I want to make sure I portray Matt's character as fairly as possible so you do not think he was wholly terrible. If you have any questions about him, please feel free to ask, and I will respond with complete honesty. He was utterly in love with me, but that was likely the only positive aspect of him as a partner. He was exceedingly controlling, jealous of anyone I would talk to, including female friends, and he wanted to change me to fit his ideal. He would become upset over trivial matters and would always expect me to apologize. Obviously, he wasn't like this in the beginning, but this is who he evolved into during our relationship. Even though everyone around me urged me to end things with him because he was so toxic, I learned to understand his toxicity and manage it appropriately. Before him, I had honestly been confident with guys, but with Matt, I noticed myself becoming overly submissive. However, the issue was that I loved being devoted to him. My main priority was always to love him, and I genuinely cherished handling his toxicity like a professional, even if it severely impacted my mental health. Shortly after my 15th birthday, we lost our virginity to each other, and it was as sweet as it could be. We were both so in love that it sometimes felt overwhelmingly powerful. Our teenage years passed dramatically. We were inseparable, and everyone around me was stunned to see me so committed to my relationship. By the time I was 17, Matt had become incredibly good-looking, and I felt I was at my best, making us a powerful couple. I respected him, and he took care of me and loved me in a way I had only read about in books. However, those years were also extremely challenging for me because my parents disapproved of my relationship with Matt. I became a rebellious girl who would scream, yell, and fight anyone who tried to come between Matt and me. On Matt's side, his mother highly disapproved of me. The reason was that she wanted him to marry the girl of her choosing. She was a highly toxic woman, but I wasn't intimidated because I had faith in Matt. By the time we turned 18, I wanted to get engaged to Matt. We were both very much in love with each other, and I just wanted to make our relationship official. I shared my thoughts with Matt, and he was more than happy about it. He soon proposed, and we became engaged. However, not long after my 19th birthday in 2022, everything began to deteriorate. Both Matt and I were transitioning into adulthood, and it was challenging to navigate. We were both working, and life was becoming serious. We started arguing frequently. Even minor issues would escalate into large fights. This period in our lives marked when Matt became the most toxic. He would argue with me over things that were not worth fighting about and would always expect me to apologize. I threatened to leave him several times during these disagreements, but this would lead to an emotional breakdown on his part, causing me to take back my words. He was not abusive. He never laid a hand on me no matter how angry he was, but he did treat me poorly when he was upset. The year 2023 was very good for us. We were both 20 and we had moved past that period of fighting. We managed our lives well. We met around 3 to 4 times a week, ensuring there was never a longing to be with each other. We went on dates and planned thoughtful surprises for one another, making it feel like we were 16 again. We were deeply in love. I was devoted to him so sincerely that he became my entire world, and I could not imagine being apart from him. Then came 2024, a year I will never forget. By this time, Matt's mother was becoming impatient. She wanted us to get married, but I was strongly opposed to the idea, believing that we were too young for marriage. I later realized this was part of her plan to separate Matt and me. She knew I would not agree to marriage at that age, and the pressure would put Matt in a difficult position, giving her the upper hand. I knew Matt agreed with me, but he was such a mama's boy that he could not disagree with his mother. I understand now that I should never have been with a mama's boy, but just because he fit that mold did not mean I was willing to end our relationship. I will summarize the next part because it still pains me to discuss. Around mid-2024, his mother insisted we marry within the next 2 months, or Matt would have to marry someone of her choice. Additionally, we hail from a South Asian background, where arranged marriages are incredibly common. However, I was determined to break stereotypes and was not going to allow his mother to pressure us into a marriage when I was confident that neither of us was prepared for such a commitment. We were both stressed from our work lives, financially strained, and it simply would have been unwise to marry at that point. Therefore, I advised Matt to communicate this to his mother. However, being the mama's boy that he was, he could not bear to hurt her feelings, and he began pressuring me to accept her wishes and agree to marry him. I maintained my stance that we would be miserable if we married at that time. I told him that I did not want to marry him because of someone else's demands. Eventually, Matt issued me an ultimatum. He claimed he agreed with his mother even though I knew he did not, and that I needed to marry him or he would marry whoever his mother chose for him. He was heartbroken during this exchange, but I was beyond that. The situation unlocked emotions in me that I had suppressed, and I never want to experience that part of myself again. Seeing Matt so willing to comply with his mother's wishes made me desperate. I spent days crying to him, trying to make him see how wrong his mother was. Matt also had an avoidant attachment style, so when things became this tense, he thought that the best solution would be to let his mother do as she pleased. A fallout occurred between me and his mother, leading to the official dissolution of our engagement. However, Matt and I remained together. We fell back into the fighting patterns we had experienced in 2022, arguing 5 days a week, which was utterly exhausting. Matt was torn between me and his mother. His mother had already started searching for suitable girls for him in typical arranged marriage fashion. A few months later in October, Matt and I had a significant fight, resulting in us blocking each other on social media. This was typical for us as our relationship had always been tumultuous. I expected us to reconcile within a week as we usually did. However, 5 days later when I reached out to him, he turned my world upside down. He informed me that his mother had arranged his marriage with a girl and they were essentially engaged. All of this transpired in just a week. During this time, Matt was out of the country, so his mother orchestrated everything without his presence. Matt had never even met the girl his mother had chosen for him. I was devastated. I vividly remember crying that night. Matt repeatedly apologized and expressed his sorrow, claiming he thought this was the best for both of us, as he believed I could never live with his family now. I met Matt a few days after his engagement announcement. I pleaded with him. I literally fell to my knees, weeping in front of him, begging him not to leave me because I believed we were soulmates and that neither of us could move on from each other. It broke his heart to see me in such a state, and he cried too. I hoped he would muster the strength to end the turmoil his mother was causing, but he merely comforted me, stating that what was done was done. By this point, he had not even spoken to the girl who was supposed to become his wife in just 2 months. This is how absurd our culture is. Arranged marriages often occur where the bride and groom meet for the first time on their wedding day. I detested the situation. Even though Matt had told me directly that he would not go against his mother, I clung to him like a child. I kept begging him. I sacrificed my self-respect, hoping that if I demonstrated how much I loved him, he would not abandon the relationship we had built over more than 6 years. I genuinely believed he would not go through with the wedding. I truly believed that in my heart. In mid-December 2024, we had another argument, and I ended up blocking him after he insisted he would be getting married in 10 days and flying back to our home country for the ceremony. I kept telling myself that he was just bluffing and that he would not actually marry her. I blocked him and told him to go to hell. I refrained from contacting him for 22 days, during which New Year's passed and 2025 began. When I finally reached out to him, he confirmed that the marriage had taken place a few days before New Year's. I refused to believe him, and I was on the verge of breaking down, not wanting to accept the truth. I asked him for proof, which he provided. He showed me his wedding picture, and that was it. I felt as though something had died inside me. I could not bear to be around him, yet simultaneously I desperately wanted him to comfort me for the pain he had caused. He still loved me, he insisted, and even after marrying he had tried to reach out, but I had blocked him everywhere. He immediately conveyed that he did not love his wife and still loved me. I was still so desperate and overwhelmed by the news. So I told him that if he left his wife and returned to me, I would fix everything. However, he argued that even though he did not love his wife, he had started to get to know her and could not destroy her life, as she was innocent in all of this. I felt pity for her, to be honest. She married someone who was not faithful to her. I recognized that it would have been more compassionate of me to accept what had happened and move on. However, my love for Matt was so intense that it felt hard to breathe during those days, and he could see right through me. He wanted to comfort me and asked to meet. When we met, I was incredibly angry at him, but as soon as I saw him, that anger transformed into sadness and I started hitting him. He kissed me. I knew it was wrong, but at that moment I was unable to process everything, let alone act wisely. I kissed him back. I needed to feel that he was still mine. We ended up being intimate. He had no remorse for what he was doing to his wife because he maintained that he did not love her. After our encounter, I felt even more confused. I was uncertain about my next steps or what to expect from him. However, I was overwhelmed with anger that day, so I confronted him face to face. I asked him once again if he would leave his wife and come back to me. He said that as much as he wanted to, he did not want to ruin the girl's life. That was it. I stood up and left without looking back. I closed all doors and locked them because I did not want to be the other woman. It devastated me. I had been mourning our relationship ever since everything began to fall apart in mid-2024, so I think I was simply exhausted from being sad and crying, which drove me to decide to move on. I began focusing on myself and engaging in activities that made me happy. For the first time in almost 7 years, I was living my life for my own happiness rather than Matt's. It felt good, I was doing well. Then 2 weeks ago, Matt reached out to me, appearing desperate. The tables had turned. He pleaded with me to talk. He claimed he had tried his best to make things work with his wife, but everything she did only reminded him how much she was not me. He told me he missed everything I used to do and he was crying. He even said, "I'll divorce her if you'll take me back now." He insisted he was not in love with his wife and felt he never could be, as I had left such an impression on him that he could not erase me from his mind. I had spent approximately 45 days healing myself, and I was no longer willing to beg him. I told him that he had had all of me and he had thrown it all away. What was done was now done. I also advised him to either genuinely love his wife or leave her for her own good. I cared for his wife and felt sorry for her. She came from a very poor, conservative family that would likely disown her if she were to get divorced, which is indeed a crazy situation. So I advised Matt to forget about me and concentrate on his wife, and I blocked his new number as well. It has now been about a week since I last contacted him. Now I turn to you all for advice. Firstly, I want to mention that there is so much I have not shared in this post because my hands would have been exhausted if I wrote everything. Feel free to ask me anything and I will do my best to address any questions you may have. I still love Matt so very much. I want him back, I know I do, but I also feel that I could never truly be happy with him now. His wife will always linger in my mind and I would constantly think of her. I do not think I will ever be able to forgive Matt for the pain he has caused me. Telling him to move on hurts me deeply, but what other choice do I have? I used to perform wife duties for him, so when we broke up, it genuinely felt like a divorce. I would cook for him and take care of his responsibilities. As I am also the eldest daughter, I naturally have a maternal instinct to care for those I love, and I consistently treated him as if he were my child. Letting go of him feels akin to abandoning a child. It causes me immense pain. However, I have done everything within my power to make him see what he has now realized. Please advise me on what to do and how to feel. I welcome any guidance. Story 2. My 46-year-old mother is flying to America to potentially meet a prisoner while my dad, defeated after 23 years of marriage, feels abandoned. I don't know what will happen between us, he shared, while she giggles behind locked doors. Can I protect both of them? My mother, 46 years old, and father, 47 years old, have been married for 23 years. They are the only couple in my family who have not experienced divorce. For the past year, my mother has been communicating with what I believe to be an American prisoner. We live in England through a pen pal program. Initially, this began with letters being exchanged, but soon progressed to phone calls. I found it somewhat strange that she was so interested, but I felt it wasn't my place to judge her choices. Then she began leaving our family dinners to answer calls from this prisoner, and it was distressing to see my father looking defeated as my mother's plate of food grew cold. This became a frequent occurrence, and my father would consistently tell her that she could simply inform them she was eating and call back later, but she never hung up. One day, my brother told me he saw our mother applying makeup to take a call with this prisoner. She only wears makeup when she goes out, and she had no plans to go out that day. That struck me as odd, but perhaps she was simply trying something new and just happened to receive a call. However, she then began using earphones to take the calls. I often heard her giggling like a schoolgirl from the study, which began to make me feel uneasy. Eventually, she started locking the study door and playing ambient music to muffle her voice. All the while, my father's sadness seemed to deepen. Then my mother expressed a desire to fly to America by herself. My father informed me of this while driving me back to university after the Christmas break. I thought this was incredibly foolish, as I had to care for her through airports in the past, despite her being the adult. Now it is confirmed that she is leaving for America tomorrow and will be gone for a week. First and foremost, my father is feeling very vulnerable right now and has indicated that he is uncertain about their future together. He lives in a remote area, an hour away from any other family members and even further from his friends. With my brother and me at university, I worry he will spiral into a deep emotional state. He is not the type to open up easily, so I am genuinely concerned for his well-being and wish to support him. However, I also have a host of personal issues to address. Then there is my mother's safety to consider. Not only will she be vulnerable on her own in America, but she also becomes overly gregarious while traveling, and given her small stature, she could easily become a target. More concerning is the possibility that she plans to meet this prisoner. I do not know if he is incarcerated or released. How can she be certain he will not harm her? She has told me she does not know what he was convicted of due to the policies of the program edit. She is required to know about every arrest to be approved for visitation. I fear she could be seriously injured or become entangled in something illegal. I cannot speak to her in person about my concerns, and I am unsure how she would respond if I inquired about it via text. She has been very gullible in the past, and I had to educate her about scams, so it is possible she may have been promised something. The fact that she never provides a straightforward answer as to why she enjoys talking to this prisoner so much suggests to me that she is aware she is doing something wrong, fears being judged, or that this prisoner instructed her to remain silent about it. Perhaps I am overthinking the situation, but I cannot see any positive outcomes arising from this. I strive to see the good in people, but I truly cannot envision a scenario based on the evidence that does not involve her cheating in some manner. I am unsure if I need to prepare for something or intervene. If her life is in jeopardy, it could create numerous legal complications for me in relation to matters she is assisting me with. Additionally, she is my mother, so I do not harbor hatred toward her, and she has not directly wronged me on a significant level. If my father does begin to spiral into despair, I do not know how best to support him or where to draw the line. I care deeply for him, but I must also prioritize my mental health. I assured him I would support him, but I did not make any further promises. I have confided in a friend, hoping she would inform me if I take on too much. But I genuinely want as many perspectives as possible on this matter without overwhelming my friends with my emotional burdens. In summary, my mother is about to fly to America to potentially meet a prisoner with whom she seems to be emotionally cheating, and I am worried about my father being alone, far away from loved ones. Update 1. My father has already made plans to move out with his mother helping him. He informed me that when he told my mother he was leaving, she barely reacted and continued as if nothing had changed. I have managed to initiate a conversation with my mother, but she seems to avoid truly acknowledging what I am saying and keeps insisting that she will stay safe. She knows I am aware of her situation, but I suspect she is trying to avoid the topic. I have not yet revealed everything to her and did not have the opportunity before she went offline. I assume she is currently on the plane. I have sent her a message requesting to be notified when she arrives so that we can discuss my concerns, emphasizing that, although she may not recognize it from an outsider's perspective, her actions appear extremely suspicious, and I genuinely fear for her safety. However, I will need to wait for her to land. I am glad my father is taking practical steps and has informed his family. He is likely to return to their village, allowing him to be closer to his mother and brother. Given the time-sensitive nature of this situation, as soon as she is back on her phone, I will communicate that I am almost certain she is in danger, and that I would rather assist her in returning safely than place blame and risk her getting hurt. To those advising me to toughen up, I am doing my best to avoid pushing people away, as that would hinder any chance of open communication. That could jeopardize my mother's safety if I cannot reason with her. I should also point out that she may have reasons for wanting to stay there, but there is no way she would abandon our dog at home. He is her baby, so I hope that will be sufficient motivation for her to return. However, I recognize that if she is deeply involved, she may not be thinking rationally. The only information I have about her stay is the name of the hotel, which, according to my father, is located just 15 minutes away from a prison. I will stay in contact with my father. He is trying to determine whether she has disclosed her plans to anyone else at the moment. I will also ensure that she speaks with me today after she lands. This time, I will not hold back and will make sure she comprehends the risks she is facing, and if she disregards that, I will express my genuine concern that she could be in very serious danger. I will also likely ask whether she believes it is reasonable to abandon a marriage of over 20 years for a convict. I will want to inquire about the nature of her conversations with this prisoner and whether he has made any promises to her. For now, I must anxiously wait. Thank you for your insights. I truly wish I had begun addressing this situation before she departed, but I cannot turn back now. I will provide an update once I speak with her. Update 2, she has responded to my message expressing that this matter is serious and that I genuinely believe she is in danger and that we need to discuss it. I realize I may not have articulated my point precisely, but I did not want to risk her blocking me. This morning, she simply replied, "No problem," and then informed me she would sleep before catching a train. That feels like avoidance to me, so I have asked her for a yes or no response regarding having a constructive conversation. This discussion needs to happen urgently. I swear to God, if she does not provide me with a clear answer, I will disclose everything to her, and she can do with that information as she pleases. I am exhausted from attempting to make her feel comfortable. It feels like I am talking to a child who believes they can get away with eating all the cake while having frosting smeared all over their face. I guess I was naive to think she would be available for a discussion. I apologize if anyone is frustrated with me, but I hope you understand the gravity of the situation I am facing. Additionally, my father has informed me that she has not disclosed her plans to anyone except him. I will not hold back this time, and I will update you when she responds. Update 3, my mother has reached out to me and agreed to talk, and she has also agreed to have a phone conversation. Because she is using online messaging to communicate overseas, I assume she is currently using mobile data since she mentioned there is no Wi-Fi on the train. I do not know how accurate that is. But she asked me what time our conversation would occur. I told her it would be best to have the discussion as soon as she is free to talk without interruptions, as I need to convey my concerns in one sitting, even if our conversation lasts for 2 hours. She has not yet read this message and was inactive before I sent it. This constitutes progress, and I am surprised and feeling optimistic that she is showing interest. Now I just have to wait once again. Potentially final update, I have had the phone call with her. She was not hostile at all. I articulated my concerns about her being manipulated. She acknowledged my perspective and admitted that such a situation could indeed occur to anyone. She explained that she simply needed to escape and has been feeling numb for quite some time. I suggested that she consider seeking professional help, even if it ultimately turns out not to be suitable for her. She reassured me that she is not spending money on anyone but herself. She genuinely sounded sincere. Typically, when we argue or she tries to justify her actions when she knows she is wrong, she becomes very angry and defensive. However, she did not exhibit any of those behaviors during our conversation. She informed me that things between her and my father are not good and that they likely will not reconcile. It turns out that she has been in contact with 3 different prisoners, and she discovered they were not convicted of violent crimes, which reassured her because she would not want to communicate with someone with such a history. This could all be a clever ruse, but I have no way of ascertaining that if it is. Therefore, I will simply have to let it go for the time being. There is nothing more I can do. I feel somewhat foolish if everything turns out to be fine, of course. The emotional cheating is not acceptable, I mean in terms of her safety. I do not believe I overreacted, given what I knew before it seemed very plausible. I am unsure how I feel about this situation concerning her. I will just need to sit with these feelings for a while. She has made it clear that she wishes to handle things independently, so if she falters, that is her responsibility. At this point, I will concentrate on supporting my father, as he is the one experiencing the most emotional trauma from this situation. It is unfortunate that this turmoil arose close to Valentine's Day. In any case, I appreciate you accompanying me on this journey. I was truly frightened. I am confident I have done all I can while also taking care of myself. If anything detrimental occurs, I will manage it as best I can, but for now, I need to create some distance from this issue, as I have been preoccupied with it continuously for a week and have not been able to function at my best. I have never felt so distracted before, but I will still check in on my father because he deserves no less. Goodbye for now. Story 3. After years of wearing a hijab and pretending to fit in, I finally realized I was more than my family's expectations. "You can't marry him, he's not our kind," screamed my mother when I mentioned someone who truly makes me happy. Now I face the hardest choice of my life: confront them or walk away for good. Will love prevail? It is a lengthy message, so you may want to grab something to eat and let me know what your snack is. I am a 25-year-old female, and I am unsure how to inform my family that my level of religious commitment is not the same as theirs. I do not live with them. I moved out a few years ago to pursue my education. For context, I used to wear a hijab. I studied in a small town in France. I am French, and I was concerned about being judged, disrespected, or insulted because of my hijab. However, people were not like that at all. They were quite kind, whether they were students, professors, local residents, municipal officers, or church members. The only negative experiences I had were from Muslim individuals outside my engineering school. I have encountered comments and overt stares from Muslim men, especially when I was with my friends. I converse with everyone, regardless of their race, gender, religion, or even their favorite anime or whether they pour milk before cereal. As long as we connect positively, are respectful, and do not harm one another, I do not care about others' personal choices. I wish that others, especially other Muslims, would treat me the same way, but they do not. One night I was followed by a group of Muslim men shouting Astaghfirullah because they saw me speaking with a male student outside the school. I was on the student council, and it was normal for me to talk to anyone, particularly to assist that individual. I took refuge in a nearby park, and my dark skin helped me blend in the dim light. I am joking, laughing. I hurried back to my apartment and had to pretend everything was normal in class the next day. I could not discuss this with my other friends because I did not want to worry them, and I tend to keep negative experiences to myself. Before and since that incident, only 3 Muslims are in my friend group as we share similar viewpoints and I feel safe around them. When I considered my hijab, I never anticipated that one of the primary reasons for removing it would involve Muslim individuals. Of course, it was my choice, just as wearing it was my choice. But now I can move among people without feeling like a target, without enduring stares, and without others expecting me to behave in a specific way. My mother asked me when I began my studies if it might be better to remove my hijab. She wears one herself, but she worried I would be ostracized among the students, though thankfully she was mistaken, at least in regard to my studies, not when I'm on the streets. I will soon relocate for another job, and I intend to inform her that I will not wear my hijab any longer. My father will likely be indifferent, but I know she will be concerned, especially since she has become more religious since I left home. She will undoubtedly ask me to return home to another city in France, as she anticipated I would do after completing my studies, or to marry someone so I will not be alone. However, I will tell her no. During my studies, I met a Muslim man and we were interested in each other. We both wanted to discuss this with our parents, and I remember feeling extremely anxious that weekend, not because I would tell my parents that I might have found someone, but because he is not from the same ethnicity and was not chosen by my parents. The fact that he was Muslim and we were compatible should have sufficed, but as much as I love my parents, they possess a certain religious hypocrisy. I am likely guilty of some too. Fortunately, a friend sent me screenshots of his comments under some Instagram posts, which utterly disgusted me. He was essentially the type of man seeking a good Muslim woman but would follow and like posts of scantily clad women while criticizing hijabi women for far lesser actions. So I simply forgot about him and postponed the difficult day when I would introduce someone to my parents, fully aware that they would never approve. They are not looking for someone I will love, but a son-in-law they will cherish. I have never encountered a Muslim man who aligns with my beliefs and values. As time goes by, I have consistently faced the realization that every man who was genuinely drawn to me and whom I found genuinely attractive was not Muslim, even when I wore a hijab. This is not something I oppose as long as we share important values, and as strange as it may sound, he does not have to be Muslim for that. This year I met someone new. He is kind, someone with whom I can laugh, who is attracted to me and whom I feel attracted to in return. He is intelligent, a good listener, patient, and has the cutest smile I have ever seen. When he smiles, I might stare too long for fear that he will notice how deeply I care for him. The problem is that he wants a serious relationship, and I do too, but by that he means meeting each other's parents very soon. He is looking to date in order to marry, or at least marry once he and his partner are financially stable. Currently, we are not dating even with the attraction. To be honest, neither of us is in a suitable place to begin a relationship. We are both aware of that. We are both afraid of dating for it to end poorly. For him, it's about distance, and for me, it's about my family, and we must resolve our respective life situations first. We both need to move from our current locations. For me, a key issue lies in speaking with my parents. As terrible as it may sound, if he were Muslim, I could compel my parents to accept him. They would be at fault in that case. But he is not. My father is elderly and my mother is fragile. They would likely suffer a heart attack before they would disown me. I may come across as heartless, but I believe I could cope with being disowned by them. There are family members I must communicate with because they are family, but I dislike them. Those conversations will be easier to manage. It is just my younger siblings who will be incredibly upset. My parents would become the subject of mockery. I am not particularly worried about my safety, as I know my parents would not appreciate this situation. My half-sister from my father's side did the same thing. She returned a few years ago, and my father chose to ignore her during that time. My mother would be utterly devastated. She would likely reach out to her friends and family to persuade me to reconsider. As I mentioned before, it might seem that I would go through all this turmoil just for a guy I am not even dating. But even if I do not end up with him, the same conflicts would arise if I tell my family that I am no longer as religious and do not wish to return home. I am uncertain if he will be the one, but I recognize that the ideal partner may not be Muslim and likely will not be. My family is not prepared for that. Returning to this particular person, he is an atheist but desires a traditional wedding, the groom waiting for the bride with the groomsmen, wedding vows, festivities, etc., and I would like that too. However, just thinking about how people would react regarding my family is already overwhelming me. There will be no support from them, save for my friends, which will be disheartening. Recently, I hugged him as we cannot see each other very often. I felt like I was melting in his embrace, and it seemed as though he was everything I desired. I want him to be my everything. He told me that he wanted me to be his everything, that he desired me. I have not stopped crying since I left him that day. I have only two options. I can either fight against my family for him and myself or let him go if I lack the strength to do so. I do not know what to choose. For now, I will focus on my taxes, but I needed to express this from my heart.